morning, class. How are you today? So our lesson for today is all about the scope of assessment. So there are 10 scopes of assessment. First is the assessment for curricular offerings. Second, the assessment of school programs. And third, the assessment of instructional materials. Fourth, the assessment of instructional facilities. Fifth, the assessment of teachers and the professors, and assessment of students, assessment of graduates, and the assessment of school managers, and the assessment of research, and lastly, the assessment of extension. So for today, we're going to tackle all of these assessments. So this assessment or this scope of assessment is very important for us to know so that we can identify that all programs in the government or private or public sectors needs an assessment so that every one of us can be evaluated or can be assessed. So first is the assessment of curricular offerings. So assessment of curricular offerings must be assessed if they are responsive and relative in this rapidly changing society. So the curricular offerings must be responsive and be relevant in this rapidly changing society. So just like for example in DepEd, the DepEd now are offering the K-12 program, which has been undergone first an assessment if this program helps this rapidly changing society or can help in our society. So like for example, the computer education for our society that is high in technology, cosmetology, food trades, garment trades, graphic arts, furniture and cabinet making for the aspiring industrial arts students, electricity, welding, sheet metal wherein students experience the actual field of work. So this curriculum or this K-12 curriculum is made by some process of assessment before it is implemented. So this curricula aim to improve students' mental and capacity of their physical skills. So it has been observed by the Department of Education that our society here in the Philippines need an inspiring people who are skilled enough to work. Here in the Philippines, we must think first the basic needs so that we can help ourselves to work efficiently or independently. So second is the assessment of school programs. So each institutions or each school programs must be assessed. So the aim of this assessment is to not overload or not underload the work of the teachers, because every teacher has a big impact. It has a big impact on their work if they have given a job or they have given a work job that is not appropriate in their field of expertise. The assessment of school programs has a big impact to the teacher's load of work. So the school must also consider the population of teachers in their school so that they can truly assess the amount of programs they can offer. Because if they are not trying to evaluate or assess the population of the teachers in the school, there is a big possibility that a teacher's load will be, or the teacher's work will be overload. So it is unfair to the side of the teacher if they are given much work to do or much loads to be teach. So third is the assessment of instructional materials. So the purpose of this assessment is to extend the utilization of instructional materials in teaching and learning process. So we all know that instructional materials are the teacher's resources, and this includes the test questionnaires, the quizzes, projects, and their instructional materials like their visual aids, anything that a teacher own or anything that a teacher has been made. So these resources are used by a teacher the for the assessment of the classroom or for the assessment of the students. So which can determine the student's level of learning on any given topic. So instructional materials should always be updated and evaluated by any means so that the degree of learning of the students will also upgrade. But the instructional materials will also based on the curricula offerings given by on the highest position of the Department of Education. Fourth one is the assessment of instructional facilities. So the assessment of instructional facilities in every school is very essential. Why? Because it is to ensure that all of those resources are adequate enough to all learners. So by evaluating the instructional facilities in school, each of these instructional facilities, we can also assure that all of these are best for teaching and learning. So for example, the classroom seems to be overcrowded, and so the classroom is overcrowded by the students. So it is important to assess or evaluate the instructional facilities so that this load of students will be transferred to a big area or big size enough classroom so that they will fit there, and the learning process will be efficient enough for the students. Because when we say the more students fit in the classroom that is small enough for them, it is hard for them to learn more because the ambience of their environment not is not kaaya-aya in Tagalog. So the situation in teaching and learning process may affect the students' learning with a poor learning environment created by the state of limited instructional facilities. So it is the effect in limited instructional facilities. The students' learning will not totally improve because of the environmental factors. So therefore, it is very necessary to assess first all of the instructional facilities in school before anything else, or before putting the students in the classroom. Assessment of teachers and professors. When we say assessment, we think that assessment is only for the students, but assessment is for all of us, not just for the students, but it is also be considered assessment to the teachers and professors, because the teachers and professors will also be evaluated or they are also undergoes assessment. Just like, for example, every year or in every academic year, the teachers will do their job or they will be evaluated by their head if they were qualified enough, competent and effective in the field of teaching. This evaluation process can be used by the school to review and rate the teachers or the professor's performance and effectiveness in the classroom. The findings of this evaluation are used to provide feedback to teachers and guide their professional development. So if there is a negative feedback about this assessment to the teachers, there is a possibility that the teacher or the professor can fix it so that in the next assessment process or in the next year, they know enough or they have knowledge enough to fix this negativity. Assessment of students. Here we go. So assessment of students is very essential to all students because it is important for every student to be assessed in order for the teacher and in order for them to know their learning or the process of their learning capabilities. So there are many assessments a teacher can do to continually improve the students' learning capabilities. So may it be written or in a performance-based assessment. So assessment is a key component of learning because it helps the students to learn more. And assessment can also help to motivate the students. For example, a student found out that he or she got a low score in an exam. So through this failure, he or she will motivate himself to study hard for the next assessment or for the next quiz. So just as assessment helps students, assessment will also help teachers to evaluate students' performance effectively. So without assessment, the teachers cannot evaluate or assess well their students. Assessment for school managers. In every institution, we need a democratic leader. A leader that is selfless and ready to help others, and also ready to hear the opinion of others. So, by assessing the school managers, we really need to know if they are good enough. Not just good enough in the position they are in, but just also good enough in the heart. So, a heart, a school manager that has a heart is a considerate, approachable, respectful, and a kind to everyone he or she has been led on. So, assessment of research. Assessment of research must have done to all students undergoing research. This is to know the quality and the effectiveness of their research to the community and to the school. So, assessment of research is very important because to know and evaluate if this research topic must be connect or we can if this research topic is we can connect to the needs of the society and or to the needs of this rapidly changing society. So teachers should always conduct their research efficiently and effectively and to have a big impact to the society. This is one of the process to evaluate or assess teachers' researches. Lastly, assessment of extension. Assessment of extension. In every extension services, we must have an assessment. Not just we undergo assessment not just in the main campus, but we must also assess and evaluate the extension services or the extension campuses. For example, the NORSU. NORSU main campus is located here in Dumaguete City. So the extension services is in Shaton, Gihulngan, Bayawan, and etc. in Bais campuses. So these extension services must be also evaluated and must be assessed if their teachers, professors, their instructional materials, instructional facilities, their students must be also assessed. So in conclusion, assessment plays an important role in the process of learning and motivation. The types of assessment tasks that we ask our students to do determine the types of assessment tasks that we ask our students to do or determine how students will approach the learning task and what study behaviors they will use. So given the importance of assessment for students' learning, it is important to consider how to best measure the learning that you want your students to achieve. So assessment should integrate grading, learning, motivation, for your students or for the students. So, well-designed assessment methods provide valuable information about the students' learning. They tell us what the students learned and how well they learned it and why they struggle. So, it is very important to know the process of assessment or the scope of assessment so that we can, as a teacher, we can evaluate where our students are struggling in and where they are expert in and where are they have they learned on our topic discussion. That is assessment. That is why assessment is very important. So that's all for today. Class dismissed. Goodbye.